All right.
All right,
Um,
Elijah Medge. So Elijah, the only other part I didn't tell you is I've got uh I've got the PBD emergency podcast happening on another screen.
what,
Emergency podcast.
oh, what's he talking about?
Well, the world's gone a little crazy today with Trump and Elon,
Yeah,
you
the
know,
feud, the family
yeah,
feud.
it was a marriage and then somehow it turned into a nasty divorce, it seems like. And so
I
uh
don't know. I think they're trying to like divert attention. I think it's strategic. I think they're diverting attention from something else that's going on.
yeah.
So that's
Well, that's
my
kind of what I said.
conspiracy theory.
I was texting Pat before this emergency stuff and said, "Is there a chance that Trump and Musk are playing everyone?"
The,
Right?
that,
Like,
yeah, with the whole, yeah, that's what they've been doing this whole time. All their tacos with the tariffs. Yeah,
yeah, the
they're
feud doesn't
manipulating
seem
everything.
legit. And it all comes down to this bill. Like maybe this is Trump's way of just like, let's just destroy this bill and let's put a new one together. I don't know.
It's not that beautiful, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. It's beyond my pay grade. All you can do is speculate, but doesn't
No.
something seems a little fishy. So anyway, that's all happening right now. This
Illuminati. They're
yeah,
all controlling it.
that's right. That's right. So I just want to recap from the last time we talked. Now, obviously you got your haircut since last time we talked to you, so you're looking pretty good. Is that a
Super.
kind of a summer thing you got going on now?
Went to Fantastic Sam's. They're pretty fantastic. I had a coupon. I took my son
Nice.
every 6 to 8 weeks.
Nice. Nice. Very nice. Well, you look
I
good.
watched my old last video and I rambled and I spoke very fast, so I need to try to enunciate this time around.
Got
Which
it.
I tend to do anyways. I speak very quickly. I'm gonna be more mindful this time.
I've never known you to be a guy that talks too fast.
Really?
Yeah, I think you're on point, Elijah.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Um,
It's more self-critical.
yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised to hear that. Um, but I mean, I don't want to jinx anything, but you're certainly making a push for a promotion. I see your name on all kinds of lists with how well you're doing. I mean, you might be running a $3 million ICL this year. Is that kind of what you're going to come in at?
It's pacing for it. I think so.
Not too shabby.
I don't want to jinx it either, but we'll see.
Yeah, no, you're doing well. That's great to see how well you're doing. And I got a lot of really good feedback, and I'm hoping you could kind of touch on this to remind everybody. But a lot of people like how you explained, the industry, in general. I mean, I think a lot of people are kind of stealing some of these nuggets on really how you out logic a person's emotions. So can you just touch on that real quick, and then I'll get into a new set of questions for you with your new haircut?
Um, yeah, I mean, I've been having a lot of these conversations, I think, over the last few weeks. People contemplate decisions and like life's paths, and I'm stubborn. So if something doesn't make sense to me, like I'm not just gonna give in. I've noticed a lot of people are like, oh, all right, well, they're gonna do what they're gonna do. And I'm like, well, no, hold on a second. This makes absolutely no sense. I think it probably turns a few people off. Like my wife's not into it at all, like when I question things. Um, but if it doesn't make sense, I'm gonna sit there and be like, hold on, like let's figure this out because what you're saying, like this is the path we're following, and if I understand it correctly, like this is where we're gonna arrive at, and that's not the destination that you're aiming to be at. So, you know, maybe we need to rethink this. So you want to be here, let's reverse engineer it. And I think a lot of it comes down to tonality. I think it comes down to just, understanding what people are saying and acknowledging the fact that there are feelings around, their situation. And we're not, discounting it. We're not saying that, hey, like we're not gonna have emotions, but let's just put that aside for a second so we don't make decisions based off those emotions. Because I think at the end of the day, like people that are successful, like that's we have 6 core values in my company, and core value number 6 is we're gonna be emotional with our feelings, we're gonna be logical with our decisions. And I think that's kind of how you navigate through situations, and that's how you have long-term success. See, it's okay to have the feelings, but ultimately the decisions have to be made rationally and based off long-term outcomes. And that's what I try to teach people. That's what I try to tell my kids. They're young, they don't get it, but if I try to, plant those seeds early on, hopefully it'll resonate. But I just don't let people get away with emotional decisions until they've at least heard me out, and at least until we have an agreement about the fact that I'm right. Now, at that point, they'll do whatever they want to do, but at least we have a common understanding of the fact that like what I'm saying makes sense. And then, they get to choose. I can't control people. I can't control my kids, sometimes I can't control myself. Like I don't always have the best discipline, but at the end of the day, I know the right thing to do versus the easy thing. So, that gives any context.
Got it. I like that value, your sixth value.
Yeah.
Um, and just a brief explanation of the industry. People really appreciated that. What's your 2-minute elevator pitch, so to speak, on explaining the industry to somebody new?
Uh, what? I mean, I guess it depends on their level of comprehension. Um, it's interesting. I don't know if you ever watch, if you follow Wired magazine, for like nerds, but they have like the 5 levels in there. So there's like 5 levels of explanation of gravity and dimensions and all that. So they explain it to like a kindergartner, like someone middle school, high school, graduate student, like an expert. So I guess it depends on who you're talking to. But I think, at the core level, we focus on customer acquisition, every business. And I think a lot of it's kind of aligned with how Gary explains it, but I've heard him say it so many times. But, we focus on customer acquisition. Every business needs customers. That's what we specialize in. Customers at the end of the day, the CAC, customer acquisition cost, is what every company wants to drive down to stay in business. That's why a lot of the companies go out of business. They're never able to lower their customer acquisition costs to the level where it's sustainable and scalable. And, that's where we come in. They hire boutique firms like us to do it on their behalf at the lowest possible cost. And, the reciprocity here is if we can do it on their behalf and we do a good job, they give us an opportunity to scale and expand to other markets. So, it creates a symbiotic relationship between us and the client where, we get to bring them new business, and in return, we get to open up and grow and sustain. And what that does, it creates opportunity for everyone that we bring into the business, where they're not capped off when it comes to, their upward mobility by any level of scarcity. When it comes to just basic economics, the demand for growth is exceeding the supply. The supply of opportunities exceeds the demand, and that's the economy that I want to be in. If there's not as many spots open, like everyone's kind of rushing, it's kind of like musical chairs, and someone's left standing, and that's not a game I want to play. But in our business, there's tons of chairs to go around, and either we're going to fill them or the competitors. So as long as we're best in class, do the right things, have integrity, work hard, then we're going to fill every chair, and there's always more chairs to go around because every company is always going to want more businesses and more customers. Every company is structured the same way. And that's what I would try to explain to people. Like whenever someone comes to my business, like I like business, but I don't know if I'm passionate about this business. I'm like, every business is the same thing. It's a bucket. It has holes, and the goal is to pour more water in than what's seeping out. That's it. Doesn't matter if it's a lemonade stand, a car wash, a dry cleaner, a sandwich shop. It's all the same thing. Right? And if you're a good entrepreneur, you're going to have all of those businesses. But start here, learn the system, learn structure, learn the discipline, the soft skills. Let us teach you in a very simulated ecosystem. Learn the skills at my expense versus your own, and then leverage that learning, and then generate the capital needed to be able to fund all those other enterprises. And that's going to be less risky for you at that point.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, COVID wasn't that long ago, obviously, but obviously there's a lot of people in our business now that weren't around during COVID. But for those of us that were, obviously we were sidelined, like social distancing, like the two worst words, put side by side for our business. Like, what do you mean no social distancing? Like, this is horrible. But the blessing that happened was, well, the clients, okay, well, I guess we're not going to have face-to-face customer acquisition anymore. I guess let's pump up the TV commercials, let's pump up the pay-per-click, let's pump, everything else up, and they got creamed. And so the demand for like, hey, we need you guys. We have no idea how to assemble a face-to-face force ourselves. We need to outsource it to the experts. And so yeah, all of a sudden we became more valuable and our commissions went up. So that was a fantastic blessing in disguise, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and that's what I try to explain to my guys. The clients that we have, they all have sales teams, and they'll probably always own the piece when it comes to like enterprise accounts, global accounts, but that's not their core competency. Like AT&T, their core competency is creating a fiber optic telecom network, 5G towers, like that's what they're good at. Now they can do sales, they can hire sales trainers, but they'd rather focus their time, energy, and resources on their infrastructure and outsource the things that's not their specialty. That's our specialty. That's what we're good at. And it does, we're very industry agnostic, so it doesn't matter. It's, hey, my name's Elijah, I'm here on behalf of blank. As long as it's viable, as long as they pay us enough, as long as it makes sense, it's all interchangeable. So that's why I'm so confident about the future. And that's kind of what I was thinking 20 years ago when I started. We're gonna, I think, outlive most of our clients because there's so many mergers and acquisitions with most of our industries that we represent anyways, but they're all gonna need, and like somebody asked me the other day in a pre-management meeting, but what if they come out with like these robots to go out and sell? I'm like, well, then we're probably gonna sell those robots. That's gonna be our campaign. We're gonna sell the salesman robots.
Mm,
Excited about that.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, just an old school story here, way back in the coupon days that Julie and I obviously started with. I remember we had this little road trip where back with video stores, this maybe even before your time, Elijah, your parents used to go to a video store to watch a movie. Did you know that?
In Russia? I don't think so.
Maybe not. Okay. They'd have to go see a live play or something
Yeah.
like that, maybe.
Ballet.
But anyway, so there's only two video stores in this little town, this little road trip. And so the owner of the place we were representing changed the terms after the coupons were printed. He's like, yeah, this isn't good for new releases. I only want to do this for old movies. And we're like, well, that's just not going to work. And he's like, no, I don't want to do this with new releases. And so, we're talking this through, and we end up going to the other location asking if they wanted to do a promotion and if they would honor this coupon for their competitor, right? So now the reps had a little fire in their belly on like, oh man, we're going to stick it to this guy. And so we end up blanketing the whole town. And I don't know if I can take the credit for that. Like we ended up shutting that other location down. Like the other location went out of business as we recruited the whole town to go to this other video store. And I guess that was my first time. I was kind of like, wow, the power of this face-to-face stuff is pretty legit. Like it's slow, it's one at a time. And I remember back in the old days, politicians used to go knocking on people's doors as well too. Like, and I remember we had one knock on our door, and my dad's like, "Yeah, I'm going to vote for that guy." It's like, oh well, it is powerful. It's slow, but when you put us all together, I think our stats for 2024, I think we talked with 80 million people last year. So that's a pretty
Well,
powerful commercial.
that's why I always tell people, like, I think the most lucrative skill you can have is knowing how to get someone to say the word yes. And, the guys get 50 shots at practicing that skill every single day. And you learn at a ground floor of sales, and then you learn how to leverage that in a recruiting standpoint. And then ultimately, you're just a happier person because the more people that say yes to you in life, you're just more fulfilled. You get your way, like things just come to you a lot easier. And not in a manipulative, like coercion way, but just you're able to influence people in a way where they're able to see your point of view because they like you and it makes sense. So, the fact that the guys get so much practice doing that every single day, I think it's a good opportunity for them.
Hmm. I just thought of something totally unrelated. I have a friend he manages celebrities, and you're in LA, so you run into these people every now and then.
Yeah.
And his latest guy he managed is Will I Am, and I was like, oh, what's that like? To work with these guys, you know, these celebrities. And he goes, it's just very weird
He's very
because
eccentric, yeah.
they never hear the word no. Like everybody says, yeah, you go to a restaurant, like, of course, you know, we have a table available. And if they ever do hear the word no, they're rattled by it. And then they're just one more phone call away from hearing the word yes, right? So that's kind of an extreme example of, you know, what hearing yes all the time.
You got to think about it, like to get to their position, they probably got a lot of rejection
Oh,
early
sure.
on, and they're tenacious enough to break through in the industry. So
Oh,
not
of course. And no doubt, no
law
doubt,
of averages to their
no
position.
doubt. All right, well, here's the juicy question for you here now. I appreciate you kind of recapping from the last time we talked, but I was asking you, you know, your superpower, if you will, or what you're great at. And again, you know, a $3 million ICL is, you know, that's no joke. You know, you're running a powerhouse business. You believe that consistency is kind of that's your go-to. So just talk to us about consistency. What exactly are you consistent with? Maybe let's get into the nuts and bolts of that, but just talk to us about consistency.
Um, yeah. So I think habits, behavior, attitude, perspective, um, just how I respond to adversity, um, just my outlook. I don't have a lot of highs and lows. Like we got some good news about something the other day on a campaign, and they're like, Elijah, get excited. I'm like, this is my excited tone. You know, I think staying steady. I don't know, people that get really excited kind of freak me out because I'm like, all right, well, things don't go the way they wanted. Like I'm gonna see the other end of the spectrum and I gotta deal with that and babysit their attitude. So you know, I like just to be steady because I think that ultimately it's kind of what you wanted from the person that you follow. You want, you know, people want familiar, people want to know what to expect. They don't want to show up on any given day and like, I wonder what we're gonna see from our coach today. So you know, I know it's predictable, but to me, I think it's fine. I had the same lunch from second grade to high to 12th grade. It was a bagel, a cream cheese, a Rice Krispie treat, an apple, and a water. And I was excited about my lunch every single day. So I don't know, somehow like embedded in me maybe, but I don't know, just to me, the more familiar, the more consistent, the less I have to like worry about it. Now I kind of get like why Mark Zuckerberg just wore the same shirt every single day. It's just one less thing for him to like worry about so you can focus on bigger problems. Um, but you know, consistency to me just means that um, steadiness um, and uh, I think self-awareness too. You're comfortable enough in your own skin where you're not trying to constantly like, you know, show something and demonstrate a certain version of you to like appease the people around you. You're just comfortable. There's one version of you. Like yesterday, we were at team night and there's a person talking about creating this clear separation. And I was like, hey, you should bring somebody, you know, when your girlfriend team. And I was like, ah, you know, I want to create these boundaries. And like, you know, to me, it's all like, it's like Richard Branson. He says like, there's no work life or personal life. It's all just living. You know, to me, like you catch me outside of work, in work, whatever. I'm just the same person. It's too exhausting and too much effort to have all these variations of Elijah. I don't have time for that. So I guess those are some my thoughts on consistency.
I'm about to, I was just, as you're talking about this, um, I'm looking for, I'll find it here in a second, but I want to read something, get your thoughts on it. Um, but so obviously steadiness. I mean, that's your disc profile, right? So you are
C.
an S.
No, I'm a C. I'm a C. Well, I used to be a CS and I've shifted to CD. Um, I had to because Otherwise I would have been, I don't know, I would have been just taken advantage of too much. And I just couldn't do it anymore. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that was me in my earlier stage of the business. I just let everyone get away with everything. So I kind of forced myself into the top hemisphere through just willpower. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
just yeah, I think somewhere probably deep down, I'm not confrontational. So I think that version of the S is still within me. Um, but yeah, I guess that's the steadiness that is part of the S. Is there a synonym for steady that starts with a C? Maybe I'm that one.
Um,
I'll look it up later on
I don't know.
ChatGPT.
Oh, so here's what I found what I want to read to you. Tell me if this speaks to you. I'm sure you've heard this before. The uh, the art of living, the master in the art of living makes little distinction between his work and his play, his labor and his leisure, his mind and his body, his education and his recreation, his love and his religion. He hardly knows which is which. He simply pursues his vision of excellence at whatever he does, leaving others to decide whether he is working or playing. To him, he is always doing both. So I'm sure you've heard that before.
It's not from your book, is it?
Is it from who?
That's not from your book, is it?
No, I wish I came up with that. That's author anonymous. But I mean, I've got this posted up on my wall
I love that.
in my office. I've just always loved that. Like, oh yeah, the master in the art of living, leaving it up to others to decide whether he's working or playing. Kind of like you're talking, a guy, brings his girlfriend to team night. It's like, well, listen, it's all one. Like you're blending one life. Um, I read a book years ago. It was at the Franklin Covey store. I don't even know if they have the brick and mortar stores anymore, but it was talked about work-life balance. So I bought the book, and the author, Merrill, I can't remember the first name, the last name is Merrill, said that this work-life balance is kind of a new challenge. Like this challenge didn't exist 200 years ago because, Elijah Medge's great 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 grandfather, if he met my great 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 grandfather at the local tavern, they weren't discussing, oh, gee, Elijah Medge's great 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 grandpa. Like, I'm really struggling with my work-life balance. Like, that never happened.
So yeah, priorities were different. Like they were a lot more in survival mode, and
Well,
they
they did everything together. Like when the kid was old enough, okay, listen, Junior, you're 8. You're coming to the field with me now. You're going to come work with Dad. And the
yeah,
girls would be in the kitchen baking with Mom. And so they weren't challenged with, like, just everything was kind of the same. Your work and
integrate.
your
Yeah,
play was all blended into one. And then here we are, fast forward the clock into, our culture. And, you live here, you work 30 miles away. You might as well have multiple personality disorder or something like that, because you're this one person in your home life and then you're a totally different cat in your business life, and you're always challenged to try to meet the demands of both. And really, my takeaway from the book was like, blend as much stuff together as you can. Like, don't separate, but try to put your work and your play and your personal life all in one, and you will have work-life balance. So any thoughts to that?
no, I totally agree. I think it requires so much energy to constantly oscillate, and I think people will respect you more if they just once again just know what to expect. If they have more of a insight into who you are, they meet the people around you, and vice versa. Like my wife meets the people that I work with, and she sees that you know that I can influence people that are sharp, that are educated, that are, classy people, and vice versa. They meet my wife, they meet my kids, they see that I care about family, that I have character, that, I picked a, worthy spouse. So I think it helps on all fronts. Um, so yeah, I think it's so exhausting to create these like separations. Now, at the end of the day, you do want to have your big rock. So I have like my date night, I have my team night, I have the Sabbath. Like, so we do, I do create big rocks for the week when I plan my week out. But uh, as far as how I behave, how, the type of person I am, I don't, I don't think I ever have multiple versions of me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm considering bringing one of my kids with me to NatCon because obviously I'll be in Dallas for a week,
That'd be awesome.
and my kids are really intrigued. They want to know more and more as they age. They want to know more and more
Big dad
about the
party.
business. And obviously I speak so highly of it, and they have met so many like positive, glowing people. They're like, oh, what a fun place to work. So I was debating between NatCon or like R&R. I'm like, oh, let me take Annie to Mexico. This will be fun taking her to Mexico. And then Joanne's like, are you sure you really want to bring our 12-year-old daughter around a bunch of people that are maybe drinking? And
Yeah, all inclusive. No, I don't.
yeah, yeah, maybe not. But NatCon, any thoughts on Annie showing up at NatCon?
That'd be great. Yeah, see dad in a suit on stage. Yeah,
I,
just take the
will I
iPad
burn?
away.
Will I burn her out?
Maybe. Maybe
Probably.
give her the iPad then,
Give her the iPad. No,
just
I
in
think
case.
she's a trooper. She wants to see it all, you know. But I love the idea of just blending as much as you can. Um, Even my son, he's getting close to 16, so it's time to buy a car. And he's been saving up money, but he needs just a little bit more. And I'm like, dude, in today's culture where, fast food pays $20 an hour, like you should easily bank like $3,000-4,000 this summer. Like, go get busy. And he's like, Dad, well, I want to come work with you. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So started looking into that and realized, yeah, we can't, kids under the age of 18 can't work in our business. So that,
Uh,
that'll be
That's
the topic
crazy.
of another.
$20 an hour. That's my competition right now in California. In-N-Out Burger.
In and out. Hey, I love it. Well, Dane's working at Thrive Juice Lab. So he's making juices and smoothies. He got two offers. We went business to business in our little community, 30 businesses total. One of them was Berkshire Hathaway. And I'm like, Berkshire, what's he gonna do at Berkshire? I'm like, oh, he's got all these realtors selling $40 million estates like
Oh,
in
yeah.
Newport Beach. I'm like, okay, Dane, that's the job. You don't have to pay him anything. Like,
Yeah, be around through osmosis, just like be around the.
100%. Like,
Yeah,
learn how to do this. I mean, a $1.2 million commission check on these big estates is pretty legit. Anyway, he didn't get that job, maybe because I think I had commission breath when I walked in there with him. But the
he's gonna
Thrive,
release that door next
yeah,
year.
so Thrive and McDonald's, he got offered both, and then at Thrive, the manager's like, well, tell us about you, and why should we hire you? He goes, well, I got another offer at McDonald's, but the way I see it is I could either be part of the problem over there, or it could be part of the solution with you guys. They're poisoning people over there, and you're trying to help
Just
people live
detoxing
longer
them.
over
Yeah,
here.
it's
They
funny.
like that. They like that answer. So.
Good. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. He goes to work in a muscle shirt. I keep telling him though that you got to put some muscles in that shirt though if you want to do this right,
My
Elijah.
first job at 16, that was actually when I started working commission. I did car washing every Saturday, Sunday, all tips.
Oh, nice.
I developed the work ethic. I have no idea why I did it. I didn't need the money, but my buddy was doing it, so I'm like, I'll do it too. We were washing like Mercedes and Ferraris. It was in Miami, so all tips. But you start getting around like wealthy people at a young age, and you start seeing like how they operate and who tips the most. And I don't know, it's interesting. You start learning a lot about people.
That's funny. Just recently I was talking to Gary, but Dane's getting to talk a lot about family. I get a lot of fatherly advice from Gary, obviously, wise man, and I was telling him went business to business. He goes, it was kind of like what it was like for me when I was 15. He says, my dad dropped me off on Ventura Boulevard and said, don't come home till you get a job. Right. So he's going business to business on Ventura Boulevard. He wanted the car wash job. Right. He's like, oh, I would have made so much money with tips. And he ended up getting the ice cream job instead. He talks a lot about, I think, 31 flavors or wherever he worked as
Yeah,
a
well, at least he
kid.
had air conditioning. Like I was
Yeah.
in Miami in the hot sun.
Yeah. But he wanted the car wash job.
Yeah, there's some glitz and glamour to it, but you're still in the sun.
Yeah. Yeah. A good work ethic though, but he
Yeah,
figured it would
sure.
have been three times the pay.
Yeah,
Gary's always been shrewd. I don't think he had to develop that muscle. He may have been born with that, where he just sort of gets it, you know.
Yep.
Um, so any other thoughts for us on the topic of consistency? Somehow we've kind of reached our time, but any other thoughts on consistency, or how you
No,
pass that along, or you just model it for people, or they know what they're going to get from Elijah? Is that kind of your go-to?
yeah, just boring old me. Just, steady, consistent, you know what to expect, and I like it that way. I'm adventurous. Look, I'm an experienced junkie. I love travel. I think I've probably been to like 60 countries. So I like doing things. I'm open-minded. I'm always down to like if someone says, "Hey, you want to do something?" Yeah, sure, let's do it. But I think that's also part of my consistency. Like I'm just open to doing whatever. I'm not closed off, but as far as like my routine, how I react to things, how I respond, my thought process on things, it's always going to be like logic first. So I think it's just important to set that example for people. I think it puts a certain level of comfort to people around you, knowing that, hey, I can rely on someone, and I like being that type of person in people's lives.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you certainly are that guy. You are reliable. I didn't need to remind you that we had this call at this time.
No,
There's some people I got to give them a couple wake up calls beforehand, but not Elijah Medge.
no, appreciate it.
Well, thanks for being on the call, Elijah. I'm sure we'll get you on another one sometime soon, and appreciate you telling the world that you're 6'3".
Yeah. You don't get to know my pronouns, but you get to know my height. No, no,
Well,
no
next
more
time
guessing game.
put your bank account number down for your your profile.
It's one.
One. All right. Thanks, Elijah.
Bye, guys.
Appreciate you.
Yep.